Welcome to lecture 23. So far we have learned how to write a reducible representation, irreducible representation from scratch, and then how to convert reducible representation into a linear combination of irreducible representations, right? So now we are well versed with what is a character table, which is a complete set of irreducible representations. So now let us look at what is the complete character table. So far we have been looking at actually partial character table. So now let's again take the example of C3V, because we now know all the elements of this character table, at least some of it. So let's see what are the different areas in this, and what are the meaning of those areas. Okay, so if you look at any textbook, what you will see is character table is divided into certain areas which are like this. Okay, so for example, here you would find written some characters like A1, A2, E in this case, mostly A, B, E, and with some subscripts and superscripts. Now, this one we are aware of already. And here you will find some XYZ written on it, right? Which is the basis set. That also we have some idea. And here you will see something written as again XY in some functions of XY. Okay. So x square minus y square. So what are the meaning of all this? Let us see. So let us divide this into different areas. So let's call this as area 1. Let's call this as area 2, area 3, area 4, area 5, and area 6. Okay. This is all in most of the character tables. You will see it's divided into different areas. So let us talk about area 1 first. This we already know, it's a complete set of irreducible representations in trace forms, right? So trace of these vectors. So area 1 is we are well versed with. So let's also see what we know so far. Area 3 we know. So area 3 here is the point group name. Then area 4 also we know. Area 4 is the symmetry operations or group elements grouped together in classes, right? So for example, here 2C3 is one class, C3 and C3 square are combined into one class, sigma V1, sigma V2, sigma V3 are combined into another class, right? So that is also very well we know. Now area 5 also we know, because we have done unit vector transformation. So these are unit vectors, unit vector basis sets, right? Basis. So for example, if I am writing Z here, that means unit vector Z will be transformed as this particular representation. If I'm writing RZ here, that means RZ will transform as 1, 1, minus 1, this particular IR representation. And when I say X comma Y within braces, these brackets, so it basically means that X and Y are not separable and thus are forming a degenerate representation. So this would be a two-dimensional representation. So whenever you have X comma Y like that, that means X and Y both together form the basis for this particular representation. We have seen this case earlier, right? Similarly, in this case, Rx, Ry would also be inseparable, and Rx, Ry together would form basis for this. So X and Y Rx and Ry together will form basis for this. Now here, these are, so unit vector basis, and then area 6 is binary products as basis. So these are, if you see that x square plus y square, if you take x square plus y square will form basis same as z. Similarly, z square will also form basis for A1. If you take now x square minus y square comma xy, that means this and this together will not be separable and would together form basis for E. Similarly, xz and yz together will form basis for this. Okay. So typically these binary products, why are we discussing these binary products? Because these binary products actually have, some of these binary products have properties as d orbitals. So d orbitals properties, if you want to know, then you would want to know the binary products, how these binary products would be transformed under a particular symmetry operation, right? So these are binary products. So if we want to know, so let's say that we have written this set of irreducible representation, and now we want to know, we want to understand which unit vector forms basis of which representation. That is easy. So what you do is you create a matrix. You, for example, if you want to know what is x, y, and z, what you do is you carry out the transformation E on x, y, z together, and then find out the resultant matrix. This we have seen already, right? Find out the resultant matrix and then find out the matrix for the operator, right? So this we have already seen. So we can do it for E, C3, sigma V, any operation given. We can do it on x, y, z matrix and then find out the resultant matrix, and that will help you find out what will the matrix for the operator, right? The point to remember, because to start with, we don't know whether a particular representation would be one-dimensional or two-dimensional, or whether it will be degenerate with respect to xy or xz or yz. We don't know to start with. So that's why we generally take xyz together and then we reduce it. Then we see which two vectors are going together and which one particular basis set is going separate, right? So for example, in this case, if we see that xy would not be separable, so xy would form a 2x2 matrix corresponding to this, and then this will be 1x1 matrix. This case we have already seen, right? So finding which unit vector is the basis for which particular IR representation is easy, and we have done that already. Now to find which binary product is the basis for which particular IR representation is forming the basis, it is little tricky, and then it's better if what we do is we take the various binary products as d orbitals. So for example, if I'm taking dx square minus y square, and then I take the shape of these orbitals as, let's say, so because this is x square minus y square, so I will just draw x, y, and z is coming out of the plane of the board, right? So x square minus y square would be lying along, the lobes will be lying along the axis, right? And these two will be positive and this will be negative, right? We know what is the shape of dx square minus y square. Similarly for dxy, again we know this will be, so again let's not draw the z, x, y, minus x, minus y. Now dxy, that will be lying in between the axis, and these will be two opposite ends will be negative and these will be positives. Similarly, we can do it for dy yz, which will be in yz plane, and d zx, right, which will be in xz plane. So it will be same. So if you want me to draw, I can draw it quickly. So you have, if you have yz, that means this will be y z minus y minus z, and this will be lying between yz, right? Now x will be coming out of the plane of the board. So, and then these will be two negatives and two positives. And now for dzx, this will be, xz will be like this, x z minus x minus y. And when you have one, so minus x z will be negative, sorry, this will be z minus positive positive, right? Okay, so this is easy. And then you also have dz square, which will be, if I want to draw, it will be something like this. With a ring of positive density, right? And then this will be negative negative. So x y z minus z minus y minus x. So now what you have to do is, if you want to identify what is the matrix for E, for example, you have to carry out the operation E onto this and see how it is transformed, and then accordingly write the matrix for E. Okay. Similarly, you do it for all 5 together and see what happens to each of this, and then accordingly write the matrix representation for E, right? So this again, I leave it as home exercise, so try to do it yourself. If not, we can discuss during the interaction session. Okay, so try to identify what will be the assignment. Try to identify what will be the IR representation for each of this as the basis set. When we have each of this as a basis set, what will be the IR? Find IR representation for d orbital as the basis. So in C3V case, for example. Okay, so do it for yourself, and then you will see that how it is transformed. So we'll be able to identify it easily. So now that we have seen, so now we know that area 1 is clear, area 3, 4, 5 and 6 is clear. Now let us look at these symbols over here, A1, A2, A3. So far we have been referring to all these IR representations as tau I, where as any ith representation as tau I, which is a generic symbol. But these symbols were actually given names by Mulliken, and hence these symbols are called as Mulliken symbols. So that is area 2. These are called as Mulliken symbols, and they define each IR representation uniquely. Okay, so now let us look at what are the different rules for this. So the molecules can be divided for these rules into linear and non-linear. So let us first look at non-linear molecules. For non-linear, so the first is dimension defines the characters, the Mulliken symbol. So dimension of irreducible representation. If it is one dimensional, the symbol is A or B. Okay, we will also differentiate between A and B based on some other property. If it is two dimensional, the symbol is E. if it is three-dimensional, the symbol is T. And sometimes in vibrational spectroscopy, this is used as F symbol, or F in vibrational spec. Within group theory, it is used as T, but in vibrational spectroscopy, it is used as F. Okay, for four-dimensional, which is rarely used in group theory, but still for completeness, I will define the full G. And for five-dimensional, I have never seen any example of 4 and 5. For completeness, this is the complete set of nomenclature. So dimension of IR representation, then the symbol will be defined as A or B for 1, E for 2, T for 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, 4, G, and 5, H. Okay, so now between A and B. So let's do it for between A and B. So that is for 1D representations, if so symmetry defines, let's say, character under principal axis. So if the character is symmetric, what do you mean by symmetric? The trace is +1, then the symbol is A. If it is anti-symmetric, that is the trace is -1, it is called as B, right? So here dimension was not able to classify between A or B. So the character under principal axis rotation defines it within one dimensional representation, whether it is going to be classified as A or B. Okay, so that is one. And now let's look at various subscripts which are written. So the third rule is symmetry with respect to inversion, center of inversion. Okay, so if it is symmetric, again character equals +1, the subscript is G. If it is anti-symmetric, that is character is -1, the subscript is U. So this actually stands for Girardet and Angirard. This you would have learned somewhere, right? Which is basically, meaning of that is even or odd. So you would have seen that in group theory or inorganic chemistry somewhere, right? Okay, so symmetric with respect to inversion, I, and if it is symmetric +1 character, there goes a subscript called G, otherwise it is U. For example, AG, AU, BG, BU, EG, EU, and so on. And this goes as a subscript. Okay, so fourth is symmetry with respect to sigma H, horizontal plane of symmetry, when this has to be used only if no I is present. So symmetry with respect to sigma H, if, so I will not write now symmetric, antisymmetric, I'll just say character +1, then the superscript is prime. Okay, if character is -1, then the superscript goes as double prime. This will be confusing, so let me write it as superscript. So prime and double prime superscripts. Now also, if symmetric with respect to with respect to C2 perpendicular to Cn, which is principal axis. Okay, or sigma v if there is no C2, no such C2 is there. So again, chi is equal to +1, then you have subscript 1. If chi is equal to -1, then you have subscript 2. Okay, now let's also look at if there are 3 equally important perpendicular, and this happens only for B. So for B representations, symmetry with respect to 3, let's call them equally important, because you don't know which one is principal axis. For example, we have seen the case of D2H where it is C2Z, C2X, C2Y. We don't know which one is principal axis. Many times they don't define it. So 3 equally important C2 axis. Then let's go to next page. Symmetric with respect to first C2 subscript 1. B part is symmetric with respect to second C2 subscript 2. 3. Rule number 7. I think this is 2 more rules. So for E representations, the character of C, or we just write character under principal axis. If the character is 2 cos 2 pi by n, where n is the order of the principal axis, we all know that, then it takes subscript 1. If the character is 2 cos 4 pi by n, it takes subscript 2. And if the character is 2 cos 6 pi by n, it takes subscript as 3 and can go on. And the last rule for nonlinear molecules is, and this is for D or F if you are looking at vibrational spectroscopy, character of C4 or S4 or C5, in that order. So if there is no C4, then you look for S4. If there is no S4, then you look for C5. And the first operation, I mean the first order, so you don't have to look for C4-3 if it is different. So only character under C4-1, S4-1 or C5-1. If it is positive, then the subscript is 1. If it is negative, then the subscript is 2. So if you follow all these rules, you can actually uniquely define the symbol for each and every irreducible representation in the point groups. So we will take some examples, but let's first complete the rules. Yes, they are not complete yet because we also have to cover linear molecules, right? So for linear molecules, there are much lesser number of rules. So for linear molecules, what do we have? So the dimension defines the symbols as, if it is one dimensional, then usually it is called as A, right? In A or B in non-linear molecules, which in this case is equivalent to called as sigma. Okay, so we don't write A or B here, we write sigma here in linear molecules. And for two-dimensional molecules, in other molecules like non-linear molecules, we used to write E. In this case, we write it as capital pi, capital delta, or capital phi, and the symbols you can take up different symbols. Okay, so there are only one or two dimensional representation in case of linear molecules. 1D are denoted by sigma, and 2Ds are denoted by pi, delta. Because these are mostly infinity point groups, so you have keep on having more number of two-dimensional representations. Okay, so symmetry under sigma v. Okay, we have seen that symmetry under sigma v in case of linear molecules also. Here, if right here we have seen sigma v case, where if it is positive it takes subscript 1, if it is negative it takes subscript 2. So here what happens, here if it is character is +1 or character is -1, or we can say positive and negative, it takes superscript, instead of subscript 1 2, it takes superscript plus and superscript minus. Okay, that's the only difference. Rest all the rules will remain same for these molecules also. Okay, so this defines the complete character table. So now let us look at the example with these rules. Let us look at the example of C3V that we have been discussing, right? So these are A one-dimensional representations. The first two are, this is one-dimensional, this is one-dimensional. The symbols have to be either A or B, right? And this is two-dimensional, so symbol has to be E. So now if you see, both of them have been given letter A and not B. Why? Because for both of them the principal axis is positive, and that's why both are A. Now 1 and 2, because character under sigma V is positive for this one, so that's why it is subscripted as 1, and negative for this one, so that's why it is subscripted as 2. So for E there is no superscript subscript required because there is only one E, and that uniquely defines this particular IR representation, right? So we will take up more examples in next class, and we will see how we'll take at least 2 examples, but meanwhile you will also try to look at different character tables and see, based on these rules, can you actually uniquely determine the Mulliken symbol for each given IR representation. We will see how it is done for at least 2 examples in next class, but let's do it at home yourself and then see if we have any doubts. Okay, so that is all for today, and see you in next class.